Okay guys, so when we open up Fusion, we come back to our blank screen. We've got our drawing tools, or some of our drawing tools across the top, or our modeling tools. If we go right up to the top of the page and have a look, we've got our file and save options and things of that sort. Okay. On the left hand side, this is my browser. This is where all of the details of my drawing will gradually be stored. So to draw up an example of our mini light in different layers, we're going to go ahead and start with a new sketch. So I'm going to come up to this button here. You can always tell that it's the new sketch or create sketch. It's got that green cross there. So the sketch is the two-dimensional drawing for our basic geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and click a new sketch, and my surfaces or planes appear here. These are, if you like, our virtual pieces of paper. So we can orientate the drawing in a particular way. If I want to view it from the front, I'd click on this one. If I want to draw it from the right-hand side, I'd click on this one. If I want to draw it from the top, I'd click on this one. I'm going to want to click to draw on the top for this, so I'm going to go ahead and click there. Now, when I do that, the whole page shifts round to face me, and hopefully my grid appears. If it doesn't, you can come down to the bottom and click on grids and shapes and just make sure that you're ticked here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle to start with. So I can press R on my keyboard, and if you come across and just look at this palette, there are some different types of rectangle we can draw. A 2-point rectangle, a 3-point rectangle, or a centre. We mostly use these two, a 2-point and a centre. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and pick the 2-point rectangle, and I'm going to put that in on my origin, which is where the two axes cross. I'm going to click once and drag out until I've got a size of 50 by, sorry, not 50 by 50, I beg your pardon, until I've got a size of 60 by 60. I can go ahead and type that size in just by typing on my keyboard 60, pressing tab so it jumps to the other side, and 60, and then press enter. The same thing would apply. Now that box is, or that rectangle or square, is just a guide for me. So I'm going to go ahead and select that by clicking on the 4 sides. I'm going to press down Shift and hold it while I do it. Then I'm going to press X. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and press my C for circle. You could come all the way up to here and choose the circle tool, but I know that C is a shortcut key. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that. Okay. Now, if I move it along my dotted line, you'll see that when I get to the center, I get that little blue triangle appear. That tells me it's the midpoint. And if I just then use that midpoint and these blue dotted lines, I can find the absolute center of that circle. I'm going to click once, start to drag out, and I want to have a size of 50 mm. So I'm going to type in 50. You don't need to press delete on those numbers first. When they're highlighted and they're blue, you can just overtype them. All right. Now, this line here is a dimension line. We might want, there's times when we want to see those, there's times when we don't, and this is one of the times when we don't. So I'm going to come across to my sketch palette, and if you look down, there's all sorts of things on here, and some of them are just about what's visible. This one says show dimensions, and it's ticked. So I'm going to untick that, just to get rid of those dimension lines so my drawing is a little bit clearer. Okay, so I've got a 60 by 60 square, and I've got a 50 millimeter circle in the center of that. If the circle's not absolutely in the middle, it actually doesn't matter too much, or it's probably best if it is. And if your line isn't dotted, well, actually that doesn't matter too much either. The idea with the dotted line is it's not part of our drawing, it's just there for a guide. Okay, so what are we going to do with this circle? Well, at the moment it's flat or two-dimensional. If I come up to my view cube and I click on my home view, I can see that there's no thickness to that circle. So to add the thickness, I'm going to click my E for extrude, and my extrude window will appear here. I'm going to start to pull that, okay, but I actually want it to be 3 mm, so I'm just going to type 3 into this box here. Okay, let's just put that into there. And this is really important. As well as setting it to a height of 3, you need to come across to where it says operation on this box, this extrude box that's opened, or window. And you need to change that to a new component. And that's really important because, well, for two reasons. One is because we want them to be separate pieces or components, and the other is we're going to copy and paste them, and they need to be really a component to work in the way we want. So I'm going to click on new component there, and hopefully Fusion is not going to crash for me. Although it does look a little bit like it might, which would not be good. I might have to restart my laptop by the looks. How useful is that? Not very, I hear you cry. And you'd be right. Let's try that again. New component, okay, and then I'm going to click OK. There we are, luckily escaped there. Now, we've extruded it. Our square has disappeared from view. Okay, we don't need to worry about that. We could reopen it or make it visible again if we open up our sketch menu and we click on the eye to make it visible. There it is, back it comes. But I don't really need it, so I can leave it switched off for the time being. My component will be visible or invisible depending on how I click that toggle there. Now this is one layer of my mini light, but I actually need 4. So to create the others, I don't want to have to draw them all again because that would be slow and repetitive. But what I do want to do is just right click on that component, say that I want to copy it, and then I'm going to move my mouse over here somewhere, right click again, and I'm going to say paste new. Now you won't see the one that's been pasted because it's exactly on top of the first one. So I need to drag it up, and I need to drag it up by a height of 3. Okay, and click OK or press return. And you'll notice now in my browser I've got 2 components, 2 different components. Then I'm going to go ahead and right click and paste new. And this time when I pull it up, I'm going to change it not to 3 but to 6 and click OK. And then I'm going to go ahead, right click, paste new. And this time I'm going to get this arrow and slide that up by 9. So 3, 6 and 9. And now I've got this sandwich type effect, okay, which is my different layers. If you sort of wiggle it about and you can't remember which way up it was and whatever, remember you can always come up to your view cube, click your home button. In fact, you can see there we're looking at it from the bottom. If you click your view cube home button, it's going to spring back to the right way round. Okay, so at that point we've got 4 pieces of acrylic, but they kind of look a bit grey. So I'm going to choose some colours straight away, and we don't have to do this now. Normally you put on materials at the end, but I think here it'll just help us sort of see the different pieces. So I'm going to press A on the keyboard, which is short for appearance, and our appearance bar opens up. in your appearance bar, you've got all sorts of things, fabrics and cloths, but we know this is plastic. So I'm going to come down to the plastic option. And when I open that up, there are then some in there that are see-through, some that aren't. I'm going to choose glossy blue for one of the middles. I'm going to choose glossy white for the other middle, and I'm going to choose glossy red for the top and the bottom, and that's for no other reason than because I come from the UK and red, white and blue are are our colours of our flag and things. So there you go, I've put some colours on there, I've made it look like plastic, and you can see the different sections. I'm going to click close there, and what I then need to do, this is fine at the moment, it starts to look a bit like the shape for a mini light, but obviously I'm missing a lot of detail on there. So I'm going to start trying to add some of that. Remember, we can go and use our home button at any point to turn it so it's background the way we started with it. Now, I need to have a cutout somewhere here for my LED, and I need to have a hole for the battery to go in, and I also need a hole on the top for the push button, but I'm going to do things one step at a time. So in order to see the middle two layers, okay, I'm going to take away the top and the bottom, or not take them away, but hide them from view. So I'm going to come over to here and undo, actually the bottom one you could take away or you could leave, but the top one I want to get rid of. So now I'm just looking at my two middle layers. At any point you can go and turn the top and the bottom back on, okay? But I'm going to take that off of there for the time being. Let's take the bottom one as well, or hide the bottom one. So on this piece, I need to draw some shapes where I'm going to cut material away. To do that, I'm going to start with a circle where the battery would go. So I'm going to go ahead and press C for circle. I can pretty much ignore that. I'm just going to say capture position. You don't need to worry too much about what that means. And this time you'll see it's now asking me, where do you want to draw this circle? Do you want to draw it on that surface for a front, that surface, or that surface? The answer is, I don't want to use any of those surfaces. I actually want to draw on this surface. You notice how the surface goes to a sort of white-grey colour as you move around it. And if I come onto my blue piece, that goes to the white-grey colour. So I'm about to select that surface to draw on. Once I've done that, I'm going to put my circle in the middle, and you'll notice that it will help you by picking up things like if you're on a centre line or if you're in the absolute middle. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the absolute middle, and I'm then going to drag that out to what I know is the size of my battery. I think is 22. I hope that's right. And press enter. And then, before I do anything else, I'm going to choose my rectangle tool. But you remember how I talked to you at the start about the different types of rectangle, a center rectangle or a 2-point rectangle. I'm going to choose the center rectangle, and then I'm going to come down onto what I think is the bottom of my curve here. So if you zoom in a little bit, you should be able to do it fairly accurately. And that's going to be the center of my rectangle. And then I'm just going to type in the sizes that I want that to be. And the sizes are going to be 6 tab 12. Okay. Oh, sorry, I've done that the wrong way around. So that is going to be tab 12, tab 6. So it should look that sort of size. Okay, 6 high and 12 wide. Then I'm going to press enter. Now, before I start to cut away this material for the LED and this material for the battery, There has to be a gap or a slot where the legs of the LED can reach through to the battery or the cell. So I'm going to choose my rectangle tool again, and I'm going to choose my center rectangle again, and this time I'm just going to find the midpoint of that line. You can see my little blue triangle, and then I'm going to draw a line. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to say 2 millimeters wide. Sorry, that's 2 millimeters high. Let's go and make the other one 2 millimeters, and let's make this one 20. Oops, I've done it again. Let's go across and go 20 in that one and 2 in that one. As long as your slot reaches from the circle to the rectangle, in other words, it overlaps them both. Okay. Then I'm going to press enter, and at that point I'm ready to start doing my extruding. So I'm going to put that back to my home view, and I'm going to press E for extrude. This time, however, I want to select a number of surfaces. So I'm going to select that surface and that little square there and that section there and that section there and that section and that section. I don't need to worry about this. I can ignore it altogether. And then I'm going to push downwards. So if I've got where the LED is going to go, where the battery is going to go, where the legs are going to reach between them. And I'm going to push that down. Now, I know that it actually needs to be -6 because I know that both of those are 3 millimeters thick. Then when I go ahead and click OK, look what's happened to our center pieces. We've now got material cut all the way through there. And so at that point, I can actually put my top and bottom layers on there, and I can see inside that right the way through to the back. Okay. Now I'm going to stop that video here because it's already quite long, and if they're too long they take forever to upload to Google. So let's see if we can get to how we go getting that far, and then we're going to draw in our button and our LED, and then we're going to make this look a bit more realistic. Okay, well done guys. If you've got that far, great job. If you haven't, just undo, use your undo button, go back to where you had things correct and try again. Okay, well done.